so that we can foster resiliency-focused people in our community. We do trainings that offer people, community members, a set of easy-to-use tools just so they can stay well in the face of adversity. Now, I was always a community ambassador or a certified resilience educator. Well, where did I come from to be where I am today? Well, let me tell you a little story. In 2003, I was sentenced in the by the Virginia Department of Correction, into the Virginia Department of Corrections, to 25 years in prison. Yeah, okay, 2003, 25 years, 2028 was the time that I was supposed to come up out of there. Well, through the help of God, because in 1995, Virginia abolished parole, and a person had to do at least 85% of their time before they could even talk about going up for a parole. So I said, 2028, I'm done. But I never believed that I would be in that prison that long. So I got more into my faith as a Muslim, and I began to work then on getting out. Right then, that's when I started. I didn't wait until I was a couple of months shy of getting out. I started then. And in the prison, I began to do worthwhile work that would just build my capacity to do good deeds. I became a tutor in the education department. I became a transition aide with a new program that helped prepare guys for when they came out. And then I became a inmate advisor, which meant that when guys got disciplinary charges, I would defend them. I was like their lawyer, and began to work with them and began to beat so many cases because of technicality a lot of times, because I had read the rule books and knew them backwards and forwards, and always trapped the correction officers off. And because of technicality, cases were thrown out. And in that prison, which was in the largest prison in Virginia, Greensville Correctional Institute, that's where they got the death row and the electric chair. That's where they kill folks at. Anyway, I was known in that prison as Johnny Cochran. Because I would get guys off cases, I mean, they were guilty as sin. But my job was to get them off, and I did. And it was a blessing, and I began to plan for the time. I did that for 6.5 years. And then they finally got tired of me and transferred me to a place called Deerfield Correctional Institute. And that was for older guys and those that had medical issues. Anyway, I went there and laid back and rested for the rest of the time that I was in. September 2015, I was released 13 years away from that, 2028. And that's because, you know how we do sometimes? We begin to bargain with God. Well, I did some bargaining. And I asked God, please release me from the belly of this beast. And if you do, I'll show you that I deserve those blessings. So from that moment on, even before then, I became a helping person. Somebody that would go all out just to help others. When I got out in 2015, I continued that training because I remember that promise. I didn't want to mess up, not with God. And so I began to do work as a fatherhood facilitator with men from an organization in Raleigh. And then this re-entry program came about, and I became a mentor to men and women that were just released from prison. Oh man, I was in my element then, because what I went through, I could help others. And literally, I had to take some of them by the hand, take them to job interviews, take them to their parole officers, take them to their drug tests. And so I did that work for another 2.5 years. And then, what led me to come and get into this resilience work and this trauma and stress work? I went to a presentation that Rural Opportunity Institute gave. And with that first meeting, they had me. They had me. My question was, where do I get more of this? And I got more. I went to a 2-day training, and then I went to a 4-day training sponsored by Resource for Resilience organization in Asheville, and I became certified. I became a certified resilience educator, and I continued my work with those that were in prison. But with what I learned through Rural Opportunity Institute was that I had to apply those principles and those tools to myself first. This way, I was convinced that they worked. And so I gave the same things to those that I worked with. But I didn't just work with people that have been incarcerated. I've done work with the school system, helping to help them create a more healing, a more restorative school environment. You know, a lot of times when students are disruptive, the first thing the people want to do, school system, go to the punishment. Go to the punishment. But we went in and we said, okay, we need to teach these trauma principles and things to these school administrators, to the counselors, to the teachers. Give something to the students also. But I noticed that working with the school system, they left out the parents. And I said, oh, wait a minute, none of this is going to work if the parents aren't involved. Because those children, whatever they learn at home, if they go talking those terms when they get home, whatever they learn in school, if they take these things to their home, their mothers, especially the mothers, you know, they're the ones that rule the nest. They tell them, boy, girl, get out of my face with that school mess. I don't want to hear it. And a lot of times that's because of their history in school and their own educational pursuits. They didn't have such a good school history, they didn't want to hear nothing. Plus they're intimidated by the education level of the school. And so we trained the parents so that when those children did go home and talk in the language of trauma and resilience, then they would understand, the parents would understand where they're coming from. So we work with the community on, you heard ACEs being kicked around this morning. Well, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, they are potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood. And ACEs, they can include maternal depression, emotional and sexual abuse, substance abuse, domestic violence, homelessness, the incarceration of a close family member, mental illness, divorce, physical and emotional neglect. These make up the ACEs that affect the individual. Now there's another kind of ACEs, and we call these the pair of ACEs. Those roots, we just talked about the leaves and the branches on the tree. Underneath are the roots. Adverse community environments. And those are those things happening in the community that lead to the downfall of the people in the community. And we're talking about poverty. We're talking about discrimination. We're talking about community disruption. We're talking about the lack of opportunity, economic mobility, and social capital. We're talking about poor housing and quality and affordability. And we talk about the violence that we see almost daily in our communities. And just because it's adverse childhood experiences, they don't just affect the child. When we grow up, when we become adults, some of those same experiences will kick in and affect us as adults. And we don't know where it came from. Well, it's coming from unresolved issues in our childhood. Those things that were never, ever dealt with. So we have to deal with that. And in our training through Rural Opportunity Institute, we deal with those things. We deal with all those things. And with the school project, what we did, you know, that you heard of that school to prison pipeline? Well, it comes into existence when you look at our schools and you got the police in the school. And they don't come into schools as community servants. They come into schools as the police. Because when the kid is disrupted, take them to the school resource officer. Well, we had to find a way to deal with them. And in Edgecombe County, Sheriff Clee Atkinson have given us access to the school resource officers, and we just finished a model of training for those resource officers so that they can also have a more restorative and healing attitude when dealing with our children. So we started with 4. We're going to get around to the rest of them in Edgecombe County. Well, it just got signed. I got to roll out. As you can see, I can go on and on and on, but I'm going to wrap up and just say that community organizations need to develop relationships with each other. And I'm so happy that Rural Opportunity Institute has formed a relationship with Ariel L. Ahab. They actually receive our funds and help us stay financially, physically in balance. So with that, I'm gonna close, or not, and if anyone has any questions for me, just I'll be over here. Just come and talk. Some of them might not want to expose to the public. As you can see, I'm very transparent, and I'll answer whatever question you have. Thank you so much.